Welcome back to the Xav Builds Podcast. We're putting positivity back into construction through honest, practical conversations with people shaping the industry. My guest today is Bill Smith, the Executive Branch Manager of Compliance and Enforcement at WorkSafe ACT. Bill leads the team responsible for developing safety campaigns, overseeing enforcement, and supporting businesses across the territory to lift their game when it comes to workplace health and safety. Today, we're digging into the real risks builders and tradies face, not just on the tools, but mentally and emotionally as well. We'll talk about the shift at WorkSafe from policing to partnering, why unsafe and non-compliant practices often go hand in hand with poor quality builds, and how building a strong safety culture can raise the standard across the board. Bill, good to have you in here, mate. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here. It's great to come and have a chat about safety.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different podcast.
Yeah, it really is.
You're representing WorkSafe today.
Yep.
So, thanks again for coming in. Really appreciate it. Mate, kick us off. How'd you get into safety and compliance in the start?
So I guess I kind of fell into it like everyone kind of does. Came to Canberra about 20 odd years ago now. Worked in public service for that period of time. Actually started working for Comcare in about 2007, assessing psychological injury claims. So I really got into that kind of workers' compensation side first. From there, I kind of branched out, worked for Safe Work Australia, came to the ACT government for a while, worked there and did some asbestos reforms. Went back to Safe Work Australia during COVID, which was an interesting period of time.
Tough one there.
It was. And then, I felt like I'd worked in that policy space for a long time in workers' compensation and work health and safety. I decided to say, let's have a go at compliance and enforcement, so the operational side of the business. And I was lucky enough to get a role at WorkSafe ACT.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate. You've been in around safety for a while then, and you must be really across the ins and outs of it, or probably always learning, as we all are.
Yeah, really am. So it's interesting to be in that policy space where you're drafting or pulling together the legislation, but then trying to operationalise it from the inspector side of the businesses. It's really interesting. It's opened my eyes to kind of both sides of the work that we do.
Yeah, so the policy making up what we need to do better, and then the actual enforcement and how that's working on the ground.
Yeah, so really interesting stuff that I've done in the past is kind of bringing together all stakeholders to create a piece of legislation. You kind of you park it once that piece of legislation is drafted. You don't see what happens and how the inspectors and the inspectorate side of the business then has to operationalise the work that you've done around a policy or a piece of legislation. So then getting some hands-on experience about, we've got some legislation about silica or asbestos. How is the inspectorate going to police that piece of legislation? Really opens your eyes up to kind of the wording in the legislation as well.
Yeah, so if I was going to make an analogy there, I'd say it's almost like you went to university, say studying project management as this is a construction analogy, right? And then you've learnt the ins and outs of how to do everything and why it's been done like that, and then you're over onto the practical side now. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's it. So it's kind of how's the sausage made is another good analogy.
Yeah.
It's essentially being involved in an outcome that people want you to achieve. So we want some regulations around, let's use silica for an example. You go away, draft some legislation, hopefully it achieves the goals, and then you hope that it's in a state that a regulator like WorkSafe ACT or any of the state and territory regulators can come in and apply and hopefully lead to a better safety outcome for workers.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned you started in Comcare. Was there a defining moment when you were like, no, I want to go over and start working in the policy side and then get into the enforcement side? Was there a moment that sort of shifted, or was it?
Yeah, there was, and I remember it quite well. It's when you're assessing the claim for a psychological injury, we actually just had new legislation come in Comcare.
I want to talk about that extensively.
Yeah, so new legislation came in for psychological injuries. I was just trying to, I read the legislation and also the injured workers' circumstances. I could see there was a little bit of a disconnect between what the previous decisions had been made and what I thought the legislation said. I went and talked to one of the policy officers, operational policy officers, had a chat to them, and then through working with them about how they actually worked through and got to a solution, that had me straight away. So, that I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, nice. What keeps you motivated to keep pushing for safer and better workplaces?
Yeah, I think it's the safety outcome. So hopefully the work that I and we do as WorkSafe ACT leads to better safety outcomes for workers. I think that's what we're all in it for. So if we can get safety, that's great. Also, the other side of the business is workers' compensation. And if we can ensure that there's businesses out there who meet their social obligations to pay workers' compensation. So if their workers happen to be injured, that's also a really
so that's a part of it as well.
Yeah, workers' compensation. I always say if the work health safety business does their job properly, then workers' compensation will be out of business. But it never happens. There's always going to be instances where people are injured at work, and workers' compensation is that social safety net that's been created for workers who happen to be injured. And there's an obligation on businesses to pay that workers' compensation. We want to make sure that the businesses are meeting their social obligation to pay that workers' compensation.
Well, it's a big cost for businesses, workers' compensation. And what I will say is I definitely think it's very important, because I think the nature of construction is, unfortunately, injuries are going to happen. And I think from a safety perspective, you can do as much as you possibly can, and you can be thinking about every possible outcome. But the reality is sometimes stuff just happens. And I feel like the other side of that too is important in terms of, assessing what happened to make sure that, that sort of stuff doesn't happen again. And I feel like WorkSafe do a really good job of that.
Yeah, so there's an equity piece. So we're there to make sure that all businesses are equal, essentially. So if you work in the construction industry and you choose not to pay workers' compensation, you're probably at a 10% competitive advantage over those businesses who do pay their workers' compensation. So it's our job to get out there, make sure that everyone is doing the right thing. So it's a level playing field. We don't want people to get advantages by doing the wrong thing. And I guess that then transfers across to safety. Definitely. Those who invest into safety shouldn't be undercut by those who don't invest in safety.
I couldn't agree more. And the businesses that are doing the right thing should have that body that are going out and auditing these people that aren't, paying workers' comp. Because at the end of the day, that they are getting an advantage there and not paying for it. What I think is a basic, it's one of the fundamentals of business, the safety of your employees. I think that those kind of people really shouldn't be in business. That's my opinion anyway. Now, I want to get into WorkSafe's approach and how it's shifted. It's great. And I it's probably 10 or 12 years ago, there seemed to be a big shift. And the example I want to give is when I was an apprentice first out on site, I think 2008, 2009, it was almost like WorkSafe turned up, pack your tools up and go home. And, looking back on it now, that it was disappointing that it was like that, but that seemed to be the go. And I can't pinpoint exactly when it was, but it seems to me that WorkSafe have shifted from, we're going to turn up and find everyone possible and go through and absolutely, decimate everyone. And here we are, almost like the police. And they've now shifted to, hey guys, we want to work with you. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so I guess that there's been over the last decade, it's probably a good time period to think about. WorkSafe, there was a lot of work that happened. There was a Getting Home Safely report after a number of fatalities in the construction industry, going back to, I think, 2011, 2012. And that kind of, the government recalibrated how it thought about safety. There was a Getting Home Safely report, if anyone wants to go out and have a look at that, and really focus the construction industry on safety and making sure that they increase their standards. Flowing on over that period of time, just a little over 5 years ago, the government made the decision to establish WorkSafe ACT as an independent statutory authority. And that was a big move for the ACT government. And has appointed Jackie Aegis as the commissioner. Jackie has such passion about safety, really cares about workers and the staff within WorkSafe ACT as well. And she had a regulatory posture, what we call it, of around using the regulatory tools we have available to us to improve safety outcomes in the ACT, all industries actually. Previously, you would have just seen us mainly in the construction industry, but we're getting out into those other industries as well. So a real recalibration of the way that WorkSafe does its work. And we do use notices as education tools. So we'll issue improvement notices to be explicit around how businesses could improve their safety systems, whereas previously there may not have been that specificity that we gave. So and we've matured in the way that we deliver our safety as well. And the way that we do our regulation.
Yeah, I'd say it's more of an educational side now.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that change. So safety is always evolving. So we've had the silica issues that everyone's aware of. Legislation was put into place. We had to educate on silica. We're now going through a phase of psychosocial safety, new legislation and codes of practice in psychosocial safety. We have a role to put information out on our website, social media, so on and so forth, but also when we go out to work sites, when we do inspections, to identify and suggest improvements where they can be made.
Now, just so people don't understand, what's a psychosocial hazard?
Well, psychosocial hazard, it can be a psychological injury, but it can also be a physical injury. So essentially what you're looking at for psychosocial hazards are things like job demand, role clarity, fatigue gets into psychosocial safety. So it's those things that if a worker doesn't have knowledge or control, it can make them feel anxious or stressed. So stress in itself isn't the hazard. Stress is kind of normal within the work that we do.
To a point.
To a point, exactly right.
Yeah.
So continued prolonged stress, that's when it becomes an issue. So it's basically sitting back. We've got a great code of practice that was released a little over a year ago that kind of goes through 14 reasonably foreseeable psychosocial hazards. I'd encourage any business out there to have a look at that. A good way to go through that is to go through those 14 hazards, think if they're applicable to your workplace. If they're not, great, you've considered them, make a note that you've considered them. If they are, think about the controls that you can put in place. So something like role clarity, for example, which is a psychosocial hazard, that's just around the specificity of someone's role, what they do day to day. You can control that hazard by just having one-on-one staff meetings, having team meetings. In the public service, we'd have a position description that explains what our role is. So a lot of the things are...
Would it be the reason why that's important is because for me, it's important to know that I'm doing a good job, right? It's important to know that, my clients are happy. It's important to know that my guys are happy, and girls are happy. And if I don't have that clarity around what say success looks like or what doing well looks like, then it can be almost detrimental to my mental health, so to speak.
Exactly right. So it's about ensuring a mentally safe workplace. And we'd all know if we're in a role and we're being given a task to do, and the level of specificity isn't there, you're kind of floundering a little bit. You feel under pressure. If you're just told to do something without that level of
support,
people can feel under pressure. So I think it's the psychosocial health and safety is just thinking about essentially how you operate in the work environment, what can make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, and identifying what was the trigger to making you feel uncomfortable, then putting a control around it. So,
so it seems complex when you say psychosocial hazard, but when you really think about it and you dumb it down, it's pretty clear, and you can understand it.
Yeah, it really is. So when I go out and talk to industries and businesses, some feedback that I get is that, well, psychosocial safety, we're not psychologists, we're not psychiatrists. We're not asking anyone to be psychologists and psychiatrists outside of the psychologists and psychiatrists of the world. But essentially, it's just going through and saying what could potentially injure or lead to an injury of my workers. So with the role clarity, the reason it's psychological or physical risk it could be is because if you don't give that clarity around the role and show someone how to use a power tool or
a computer,
it could result in a a really bad outcome.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what psychosocial safety is.
Yeah. Bit of a dark horse, that one. And I think that it's good that WorkSafe has sort of brought that to the surface and identified that, there is a risk there. Some of the things that have come to my mind is some of a young guy in particular could not get on a ladder. And, the guys that were working with him basically couldn't understand it. And I had a few different conversations with him around it. And I think he fell off a ladder when he was young and he just had that complex, if you want to call it that. And so we had to sort of adapt the way that he worked when we were on site to accommodate him. But I think, is that the kind of thing you're looking to solve? Is that right?
Well, it's just being it's the workplace just being able to find out what the potential hazards are for the workers. That's usually done through consultation. So you should talk to your workers about what are the actual or perceived hazards within the workplace, and then talk with them and consult with them to say, okay, well, I'm thinking about controlling it this way. Mm-hmm. Are you happy with that control? Yes or no? So it's really sometimes we see that the businesses feel, or the business owners feel, very isolated, and the ones that have to make all of the decisions. Ultimately, yes, but consult with your workers. It also helps build that safety culture. Yep. It shows that you're passionate and care about them, and that you're putting safety at that kind of standard where it should be, which is number one.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to change direction a little bit. I want to talk about the link between poor safety performance and poor quality builds. Now, I know you can't comment directly on the quality of builds, but in your experience, have you noticed anything? Well, I think we were talking about it just before we started. One of the indicators of a poor quality build, in my eyes, is you turn up to site and the site's a bomb. It's a bomb site. There's stuff everywhere. Have you been out to sites and sort of is that an indicator for you guys around safety?
1,000,000%. So essentially, if you're going into a site with poor site hygiene, so that includes kind of the site security as well. If we're going into a site where the fences are pushed to the side, there's construction rubbish strewn across the site, you're already walking into a trip hazard kind of site. It allows the public to get into that site. It's a red flag 101 for inspectors to go out and see poor site hygiene. We're essentially walking into a site where, let's say 85 to 90% of the time, you're going to find some other safety issues with that site. So clean site doesn't always mean that it's going to be always a safe site, but it's a good indication that the people on that site care about what they do, care about the workers, care about the trades that come in as well. It's a massive indication if we're going to have safety on site.
Yeah. I think it's hard to, if the site is messy from a builder's perspective, if the site is messy, then it's hard to produce good quality work. And I know you can't comment on the link there, but I want to make it clear how important site safety is. And a really big aspect to that, I feel, is having a clean site. And with having a clean site, you can then perform your duties, or you can have your trades come in and perform their duties to the best of their abilities. But when there's stuff everywhere, I just think that, one, I don't like that. I think it's disrespectful to the client. I think it's disrespectful to your trades. And yeah, I'm happy that you guys are on the lookout for messy sites, and I'm sure that's probably a red flag for you straight in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you're talking about, what we're all talking about, is culture. And if you've got that culture of a clean site, it leads the other trades who come in to follow the lead. Hopefully, if there's stuff thrown everywhere, the next trades coming in will probably just mirror what's happening. It's a flow-on effect. And if you create a really clean and safe environment up the front, that should flow through to it kind of sets the professional standards straight off the bat.
Definitely. Can a strong safety culture actually improve overall project quality and business performance?
Oh, without a doubt. So you're looking at preventing lost time injuries for starters. You've got continuity of people working on the site. If you're created a culture where you care about your workers, and you're ensuring and doing everything reasonably practicable to keep them safe, it'll flow on to quality, but also preventing injuries, which if you've got workers who aren't at work, they're not there to be able to do the work for you. So it'll improve completion times. There's continuity of task as well. So without a doubt, creating that culture where you're caring about your workers leads to all kinds of improvements.
And I think that's a really good point you brought up. When the site isn't safe and there's an accident, you do lose an employee for a period of time, whether it be a cut or a more severe injury. That person's out, and then when they come back to site, their confidence is low, and the missed opportunity there in terms of having a full team on a project, or I think there's a bit of I look at WorkSafe ACT a little bit like how a builder would or a tradie would work with a certifier, in terms of really they come through to make sure and do the double checks, just to we need another set of eyes over it, and I think that the importance there of safety can't go understated. And that's why I was really wanted to have you in and have a chat with you, because I think with construction, inherently construction and safety are paired up together, because everyone wants to go home.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other thing that I think most are aware of is that you've got new, young, vulnerable apprentices who are coming onto site, and if they're kind of brought into a culture of safety, that's fantastic for their development. Hopefully when they become business owners and they're training people, that safety culture will be passed on. It's concerning when you do see, and we potentially have all seen, sites where there are apprentices on site and may not be as safe as they should be. We don't want to perpetuate a myth that is the right thing to do. Cutting corners should not be something that you're teaching young, vulnerable workers to do. So as a leader in business, if you can show the next generation of builders how to do the work safety, how cool is that? Like, how great is that you're creating a culture of safety into the next generation?
Really good point there. What does a safety culture look like to you?
Yeah, so it's really basic in a construction sense. It's the making sure that everything you do is meaningful. So the toolbox talks you have in the morning, make them meaningful. Talk about the bad things that potentially could have happened the day before. Talk about how you're going to improve them. Really take ownership and put safety at the forefront. And consult with your team. If your team knows that you care about safety, how cool is that? Like, they know their boss cares about whether they get home. You're building not just a safety culture, you're actually building a culture within your business. It happens to be built around safety, but that'll flow on to quality. It'll lead to people wanting to stay with you. It'll lead to loyalty. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we have a policy in my businesses where anyone can say, no, I don't, we can do that a better way, or that doesn't look safe, or, so the apprentice that's brand new and first week on the job through to the bloke that I've had with me for 15 years, everyone has the opportunity to say, hey, wait up, I don't feel, okay here. Like, what are we doing? And I want to try and build that culture, that safety culture. I feel like I've been working hard on that safety culture, and safety is important to me because of all the factors you said. I don't want my guys out because they've been injured. I want them to go home every day. I don't want them to, work to affect their personal lives with their kids and their families. So I think that's really important for me. The next one I've got here is, have you seen cases where a builder's turned things around through education rather than enforcement?
Kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
So there was a year or so ago, we did a repeat offender program, which was where we wrote to 20 builders who had been issued with multiple notices over the last 12 to 24 months. Through that repeat offender program, we've seen some improvements in those builders, just by saying, look, this is a couple of times that we've had to come out to your site. If you don't lift your game, we could move to the prosecution, which no one really wants to get to. So, we've seen some improvements definitely within businesses who have reached out to and said, you need to lift your game.
Yeah, nice. All good? We're good? Okay. We're learning.
Great to be part of it.
We're on a really good roll there.
Are you happy with what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's working. It's going really good.
I'm glad that happened because my mouth was getting like really dry. I don't usually talk this much, so it's like really.
Well, I went to the industry breakfast last year.
Yeah.
And I felt that was really good. And you mentioned that at the industry breakfast. I felt like that. There's some repeat offenders, and you put the hammer down on them. And, hey guys, this isn't good enough. Lift your standards.
Yeah. It was a real, and we'll look at doing that again. To just reach out to those who we've seen a couple of times.
And are they more on the commercial side, the residential side, or is it a mixed bag?
It's more in that residential space at the moment. Of course, there's some non-compliances within the commercial side. But at this point in time, residential is where we're trying to lift that safety standard.
Is there a service that WorkSafe offer for, say, builders or businesses that just want to do better and just aren't sure? Like, is there a way, like, we could get WorkSafe, you could get WorkSafe in your business, go, can you do an audit on me, or can you just come in and help me because I don't know what I'm doing, or I want to do things better?
It's not a service we offer. It's essentially we are the regulator in a sense. So a great example that the commissioner uses is that if you've got issues with your tax, you don't call in the tax office. You get an accountant to come and help you.
That's a good analogy.
And it's a great analogy.
Well done, Jackie.
Yeah, well done, Jackie. It's fantastic. And I do use it, copyright Jackie Aegis. But it's getting those specialists who, so a WHS consultant to come in and look at your business. It's a bit more intimate. So the reason that we don't is because if WorkSafe came in and we did an audit and said hunky-dory and then something happened, you'd be saying, but WorkSafe were just here. So it's kind of what we call regulatory capture, where we have to have arm's length from those kind of discussions. In saying that, if there's a business out there that would like me or anyone within WorkSafe to go out and have a general safety discussion with them about psychosocial safety or silica safety or anything like that, more than happy to do so. What we can't do is tell you what your hazards are and how to control those hazards.
The lines become too blurred.
They become too blurred. So if I walked around your business and said that, and you just followed exactly what I said, you could miss a few things. I could have missed a few things, and it just sets a kind of it's a confected surety. So we don't offer that service. But if people have questions around safety, definitely get in contact with us. But we don't do that audit.
Yeah. Do you refer people on to other businesses, or
no?
Not really.
No, we don't. There's always the peak bodies out there that the businesses can call on. So HIA, MBA, if you're a member of a union, get in contact with your union. So there's those kind of peak bodies out there that you can lean on with regards to some help for safety. And there are professionals out there in the yellow pages, I guess, that you could dial up and ask some questions about how your site
can be safer.
Can be safer.
Yeah. You can always do things better. And I feel like safety, as you mentioned, it's ever evolving. And it's something you've got to keep touching back on.
Yeah.
Yep. And the more that you're progressing along, the more that you need to sort of look at it and think, how can we do that better next time?
Yeah. So a big part of safety is kind of, so you go through your identify the hazards, assess the risks, control the hazards, and then review. So it's a cycle. If something happens and you had controls in place, but something happened, it's time to do a review. So you do your review and then do the process again.
Mm-hmm. Away you go.
Away you go.
What tools, systems, or standards do you wish every builder understood and applied? Tricky one.
Look, the biggest issue that we see is around site security. But falls are the one that where we see non-compliance, and there's such a significant risk in falls. I think a couple of years ago, there was 29 people in the country who died as a result of a fall from height. And that was 32% up on the 5 years previous, which was an average of, I think, 22 fatalities a year for the 5 years previous. So standards and obligations around fall safety, I think everyone who works in that space where your workers get above 2 meters, that's what I'd hope that everyone would focus on.
Yeah. So yeah, identifying that is a big one.
Yeah.
And the significant injuries, I should say, that my employees have been from falls.
Yeah.
The first interaction I had with WorkSafe, I was remembering it last night, was I think in 2017. We had a scaffold around a home in Pierce, 2-story. And what ended up happening was an apprentice dropped the scaffold went around, there was a balcony from the house. And the apprentice dropped his knife down to this balcony, and he climbed all the way over the scaffold down to this ledge and then fell off onto a pile of bricks. And, we'd had so many discussions on that side about safety because there was a lot going on. And when I called up WorkSafe to get the guys out, I was very, very worried that I was in the wrong. But it was really nice to when the inspectors came there, they were very, very supportive. They were very, very understanding. They looked after me. They looked after my employee and the guys there. And I really appreciated the way that they handled the situation. And they really came through with a lot of support. And I think one of the comments was, mate, you can't safeguard against someone that just completely goes against. Who would climb on the outside of a scaffold and do that? Like, if the knife's there, leave it there, mate. And I really appreciated that. And that was my first interaction with WorkSafe, and it was really, really good. And a few weeks later, that inspector actually called me up and said, "How you going? What's just check in on me and to check in on the. He also called the apprentice as well to check on him. He had a broken arm, which was disappointing. Obviously, he was off work for 6 or 7 weeks while his arm repaired. But yeah, the support I got from WorkSafe at that point, I felt really, really, really valuable. I could see I had really tried to make sure that the site was safe and that I was doing all the right things, and just disappointing that this apprentice just decided to I don't know why he thought climbing over the top of the scaffold was a good idea. But yeah, anyway. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges facing the construction industry right now? You mentioned falls. That's a big one.
Yeah. So falls are the biggest one, without a doubt. Site security.
So site security, you mean?
Yeah. So it's fencing around construction. So that's there basically to prevent public access to a work site. So when we do see issues where there isn't fencing around a construction site, that the risk there is to the community, children getting onto the site and injuring themselves. So that's not necessarily a worker safety. That's a public safety obligation that we have. So and then falls will always be the biggest issues. And I guess on that fall space, it's the fall risks that you can't see. So it's internal voids.
I can remember a few in Canberra that have happened like that.
Yeah. So internal voids, there is gravity works inside and outside. So yep. We see what they've got outside with the scaffolds, harnesses, edge protection, all those kind of things you'd see. But as you get inside now and you've got some buildings that are 2-3 stories internal with those big voids, they need to be protected as well. And we do see unguarded voids more than we'd like to.
Well, lifts in residential are becoming really popular.
Yeah.
And the big void there, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. So just protect.
Mm. It's interesting you mentioned about site safety, because I feel like on the news this year and last year, you're constantly seeing these people climbing up on top of these cranes.
Yeah.
Like, what is the go with that? It's just
no comment.
Like every time it's like, oh, this guy's had a big night on the drink, and there he is.
Yeah, like that's why site security is so important.
Yeah.
It's to protect people from themselves sometimes.
Mm.
And there is an obligation. We know that it costs money to put the fences up, but those are the kind of costs that you have to build into the quotes for building a house or doing any kind of construction work. They have to be considered and quoted and costed and then implemented. It's the cost of safety, but safety is so important.
Now you bring that up, it's just brought something to my mind too. I know a lot of clients will want to go and check out their construction work each day. So, and that poses a danger because if they're not aware of the site, most people that are building a home don't have, their silica, their work health safety ticket, their, asbestos awareness, all of these tickets you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
And they'll roll onto, their home, which it is their home, yes, but it is a construction site. And I think that it's important for people to recognize that while it's a construction site, you need to stay away unless you're invited into the site because as a builder, we have a duty of care and that duty of care extends for the whole time we're there in construction, right?
Yeah, that's right. So guided inspections are completely fine. I think when I built my house in Googong 10 or so years ago, there was a padlock on we wanted to go in, we wanted to go and have a look. What's the space feel like? But the builder was great on reflection because they padlocked it and I couldn't get in there. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking for. But you can only do things so far as reasonably practical.
Correct.
So you have to, as long as you meet that standard, so you've done everything you can to secure the site, the time you left it, when you've left it for the day, the site's secure, that's what you can do. It's as far as reasonably practical.
And it does pose it in some of my businesses we're working in people's backyards and then that also poses a little bit of a difficulty there. And we try and make mention to our clients that, look, hey, this is a building site. Make sure that you're aware that if you're going out to have a look at the work, be careful of your surroundings.
Yeah, that's right.
As best we can. With psychosocial hazards now formally part of the regs, how do we start managing things like fatigue and mental health on site more effectively?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because we've got our lives external to work, and then we've got our work lives. So a business can only do as much as they can managing what they've got control of, and that's whilst you're within the workplace. It's just really having the pathways to debrief, consult, and build that trust with your workers that they can talk to you if they're seeing issues and hazards within that workplace. So fatigue is one that existed a long time before these regs and the psychosocial code were in place. And there should be measures that businesses already have in place to manage fatigue around hours you work, breaks. Also, being mindful of the weather conditions that you work in if it gets too hot, those kind of things. So, the controls around psychosocial safety are those that you can control within your workplace.
Is playing eyes up footy, right? You see someone kicking stones, head down, they probably need to have a bit of a chat, pull them aside and, how you going, mate? What's going on?
Yep. So, and you've got the bigger the workplace, the more likely to have a health and safety representative, HSRs, and a work health and safety committee within your organisation. That also gives a pathway for workers to raise concerns. So if you're large enough or a worker has requested the establishment of a health and safety representative and a committee, you've kind of got that supporting infrastructure or the governance around safety. So you can also lean into that as well. But so
for the smaller businesses though,
that's
and the builders that are, have trades and carpenters or whoever working for them, I think they need to be a bit more aware of that this is an issue.
Yeah, it's an awareness. You need to take time away from putting the roof on the house to take a step back and think about the safety systems that you've got in place for the workers who are helping you build. So as a business owner, or PCBU as they call it in work health safety world, you've got an obligation to take a step back and think about safety. There is a lot to think about. We know that, but they're kind of known hazards and known risks now. So there is an expectation that you'll contemplate psychosocial hazards within your workplace and put in place controls to make sure that they don't eventuate. That hazard doesn't hurt someone.
And an easy control to put in would be, look, catching up with people once a quarter, once a month, take them out for a coffee, meet them one-on-one, have a bit of a chat. How you going? What's going on? What's annoying you? What can we do better? Is that an example of a control? Yeah.
All those things allow you to consult and come up with a control. The thing that people get concerned about or scared or probably scared about is that they expect there has to be some kind of really elaborate control placed around a hazard. There doesn't have to be. It's just we saw that Bill didn't really know what he was doing. We met up with him. From now on, we had issues that there wasn't role clarity around his job, or there was job demands. He was working too many hours. We had a chat with Bill, and we've said he has to start at 7:30, and now he finishes at 3:30 with a 30-minute lunch break. We're going to catch up with him every week, 2 weeks, to see how he's doing.
Just that support. That's it. Just that support.
That's it.
That's simple.
Yep. Support.
What role do business owners and site leaders play in safety and setting the tone for safety? We were talking about culture before, right?
Yeah.
It really goes off that.
Yeah.
It starts from the top down.
Exactly. You are the tone. If the boss says that safety is paramount, safety should be paramount. Yeah. The officers within a business, or the owners of the business, set the safety culture tone.
And see the value in safety.
Yeah.
That big one with people getting injured and not being available for work, I think, is a really big one. I think as well, when you've got a really good company culture and everyone enjoys being there, I think a part of that is working safely in a clean site. No one wants to go to an office that's messy, let alone a work site that's messy. So that's another really important thing to highlight there. It's going to bring the vibe up. It's going to make people smile and they know that they're being looked after.
Yeah, if your listeners close their eyes and think of their ideal work site, they're not going to think of rubbish all over the floor. And I think everyone that listens to your podcast can close their eyes and go, okay, that's a perfect site. I know exactly what I want it to look like. And hopefully the boss closes their eyes and sees the same thing, and that's the kind of work site that they want to have. So, yeah, I think all your listeners know what good looks like.
I think that really leads into my next question here, which is, how do you connect with operators who see WorkSafe as a threat and not as a resource?
Yeah, it can happen because when
there's still that older mentality, I think some people have got that.
There is, and there's people who have been doing work for 10, 20, 30, 40 years who are experienced in the work they do, and they have done it a certain way for a long time, and potentially in the interim, a safer way to do the work has evolved, and we're looking at the safest way to do that work. And it can be affronting for someone to come in and tell you that the work that you've done for so long isn't the safest way you can do that work. So that's an educative kind of process, but also we do seek an acceptance that we're not trying to inhibit productivity. That's something that can be thrown around with safety, that it takes too long, or essentially by doing that, it'll take us longer to do.
Yeah, and they need to look at that as from a perspective of, if you get injured, then you're not getting done at all. So
exactly right. So it's kind of trying to reposition people's thinking, reposition their thinking to understand that people out there are trying to ensure the safety of their workers, and a lot of work has gone into improving those safety standards. So I think from 20 years ago with the fatality rate to where we are now, there's been such an improvement in Australia in the construction industry, and it has to do with the systems that have been put in place. People might not like those systems and may feel as though they're past their use-by date. So safe work method statements, we get so many people saying safe work method statements, they're a tick and flick. Not if you use them properly, not if they're site-specific and you're using them every day. They can become a little bit monotonous if you do the same job every day. But, so we get a bit of pushback around those kind of things. red tape. What would you know? I've been doing this for so many years, but that's part of our role. We have to accept that there'll be people out there that potentially don't appreciate us, don't agree with our decisions, but we have to go through the good and the bad.
You've got a job to do too.
We've got a job to do. And look, if people don't agree with our decisions, and it happens quite a lot, they can ask for reviews of our decisions. We've got pathways where we'll get someone else to have a look at them. So, we're not beyond reviewing the decisions that we make and reversing them if we need to.
So on those tough compliance cases, what have you learnt there? Is it mainly a communication issue? What do we?
Oh,
they don't understand the importance, or they don't understand. They don't understand. Yeah,
it can be a couple of things. So I think we touched upon it a little bit earlier. Is that shortcuts have been taken at the expense of safety, or sometimes it just gets a little bit. There's a little bit of complacency that comes into the work. We've done it so many times that it becomes second nature, and then you forget to do something and something occurs. Yeah, so it's just around. There's so many different reasons why something could happen, and there could be a safety non-compliance. It's hard to really put your finger on it, but yeah.
Oh, we're right here. Do you need a drink?
Oh, yes,
thank you. Yeah, get a drink. Content and communication. Content and communication is the next one.
Yep.
Now, WorkSafe's using social media platforms, education campaigns to reach younger trades and smaller businesses. How's that been going?
Yeah, well, we've got a great communications team at WorkSafe. Has really rolled out some new innovative social media stuff. We're trying to get greater engagement with all industries. So you subscribe to our newsletters. We've got a podcast that Jackie does as well.
Yep.
Probably your competition. So Jackie's doing a podcast as well, which is a great listen. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'll forget one, but that's okay. I'll get in trouble from the conversation.
You're trying to get it out there. You're trying to communicate, and I think that's really important. And I think it's really good to see that you're on social media and you're trying to, I guess, educate people.
Yeah, industry breakfasts. I'll get in trouble if I don't say that. So fantastic initiative by our engagement team is to do industry breakfasts. I think we had a really successful one in the construction industry last year.
I feel like they were all pretty successful.
Yeah, so all great. A heads up that there'll be a construction one, I think, in October for Safe Work Month this year. So if you're out there listening,
tickets come out for that.
Yeah, tickets will come out. I'm not sure how far in advance, but I can fill you in on that. But yeah, so if you're interested in coming, it's great to have some safety-minded people all in the same room to hear about what WorkSafe ACT is doing. So National Safe Work Month, hopefully businesses out there really get into that as well.
That's October, isn't it?
October, yeah. Yep. We're doing a lot in that space to try and get the word out there about safety. Everything we can do, we're trying.
It's such a multifaceted, thing, safety. There's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
How do you communicate that all at once? And like what messaging gets through? Like,
it's a really interesting question. I'm sure that lots of people out there in comms world are trying to think of it. Those people who are engaged are already engaged. They're great. So they'll get the newsletter, they'll read the newsletter, they'll be in the LinkedIn, open the posts and those kind of things. So the people that we're trying to get are those new people coming into safety, or those that don't really care as much as they should. What our focus is at the moment is targeting young and vulnerable workers. So like I was talking about a little bit earlier, getting those people to know about their safety and their rights before they really enter the workforce. And if we can get those people to care about safety at the ground and know their rights, and they've also got worker responsibilities, then that's what we're targeting. So we've got vulnerable worker inspectors. We've got a young worker webpage where people can go to download things in that space. So multifaceted, and we've got to come at it from all different angles.
Well, I think, young guys coming onto site and girls coming onto site, they've got the white card, asbestos awareness, silica, But I think they need more support than that. And that what you're saying there is, hey, we've got that support, and check out our website and get on there.
Yeah. If you do check out the WorkSafe website, definitely. If you'd like, if you've got some apprentices, young vulnerable workers on the site, and you'd like us to come out and have a chat to them, just get in touch.
So essentially, when you're saying vulnerable, you mean new to the industry, right?
Yeah, new. So it's new to the industry. We've also got a big part of the work environment will be the culturally linguistically diverse workforce as well. So we're in the process of getting some safety documents put into their languages, translated into those languages. So we're trying to
being a multicultural society.
Yeah,
we have to think about that, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. So there's lots of things that we're doing to try and get that safety message out there.
Yeah, and on that, inspiring the next generation. Why do you think fewer young people, I guess, and people in general are choosing construction? You got a take on that?
Oh wow. Not necessarily. I don't have a hot take on it, really. There has been a significant drop-off. I think just looking at the data, around 21% reduction over the last couple of years in people wanting to get into the apprenticeships and trades. Look, an easy answer for me would be to say it's unsafe, but I don't think that would be the reason why people are choosing not to get into apprenticeships. I'm not sure of what's happening in schools nowadays. It's potentially a societal issue rather than something in that safety space.
Yeah, I've had that conversation. I like to bring that up on every podcast, right? Because I do want to encourage young people, and as I've developed along the podcast sort of situation, it's not just young people who we want to attract to the construction industry. It's anyone that wants to be in construction, and so bringing that up every time is important for me because I want to highlight the construction industry is a great career, and it is multifaceted like safety, and I think that a big part of an enjoyable workplace is safety, and people need to know about the resources they've got there. And I can see how you've got a young person or someone new to the industry coming onto a site with a builder they've just or a business PCBU that they've just sort of found on Seek or something like that, and not being aware that how safety needs to be done. And I think setting that safety culture from the start is definitely going to be important. Yeah,
so we'll get out to CITC. CITC, that's a good little segue. The construction industry training, they do a great apprentices awards day as well. So really recognising and rewarding those apprentices who have done a great job. They've got a safety award in that space too. So there's lots of organisations out there who are promoting apprentices and rewarding the ones who stay the journey. So
I went to Master Builders and they were really good with safety.
Yeah.
And that really did set a tone for me actually, thinking about it now. They took us through everything. They made sure we really clearly understood everything. There was clear boundaries in there. And then all the different courses they put us through, working safely at heights. And the teachers did a really good job in there of actually saying, hey, you need to pay attention to this. This isn't school. This is, your career.
Yeah.
And, you're doing this every day, so it's important.
Yeah, and so something like that resonates with you and has led to a safety
culture.
A safety culture. That's fantastic.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to a young person or someone new to the industry stepping onto a work site for the first time?
From
a safety perspective.
Yeah, from a safety perspective. I guess it's just be aware of your surroundings, but also have a good chat to your boss or your supervisor before you step onto that site. Ask questions. Don't go onto a site with not knowing what you're supposed to be doing, because that's how accidents occur. I guess that. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course you can.
Know what safety gear you need to have.
Yes.
Have it with you every day.
Yep.
And use it, because my big thing is when I go out to site, all the younger guys or someone new, I want to make sure that if they're cutting anything, they've got eyes, ears, and they're well protected. The people around them know that they're what they're doing, but it's more often than not the young bloke or the young girl that's left their glasses at home, and it's like, hey, you need to have that stuff every day. Like, it's like bringing your backpack to school.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other things that I'd recommend to them is that they've got a duty as well to the workers around them. So workers have duties to health and safety duties of the workers as well. So if you identify something that potentially is unsafe, you're able to stop that work. You're legally able to stop that work, report it to your supervisor or the business owner, and step away until it's made safe. So that there's also, you have the ability to call out unsafe work practices, and if you can do that, that's
needs to be done.
Yeah, feel safe to do that too.
Do you go to sleep again? Yeah.
Do I need to move more?
We're going well here. I'm really enjoying this.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's always interesting talking to people like yourself, who have such a really good understanding of why safety is important, because you see so much. You would see so much stuff, right?
Yeah.
And your role in there, so you've got all the inspectors you look after, and I'm sure they're telling
you. They look after me.
Yeah. They look after you.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're telling you all the frustrating things they're dealing with. What are some of the comments they're getting back?
Oh, so essentially, like, there's no consistent. It's strange. There's no consistency because each inspector has their own style, their own way of doing their work.
It'd be a pretty interesting job going to all these different work sites and all these different, cultures, if you want to call it, on sites.
Yeah. So when we have chats, it's more around we just have discussions to debrief to see what they're up to. More than anything.
A few laughs in those.
I'm not that funny. I'm too serious. So no, there's no really consistency of message. What they do get back is if they see consistent issues on work sites, so falls, site security, all the things that I've already spoken about, is they'll come back and say, oh, saw another one at blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's
another,
the kind of
another mark next to it.
So that's the kind of discussions that we have in that space. So
but what I want to say to people is that the guys, the inspectors and guys and girls that you've got inspecting, they're real people. Oh. They take pride in their work and they want to do a good job as well, and they want to look, they're out there to support and to, clip the people that need to be clipped.
Yeah, well, we're so proud of the inspectors that we've got at WorkSafe. And if you walk into any workplace in the ACT, I reckon we've got the most diverse in terms of experience and background. We've got people who've been panel beaters, people who've worked in retail, people who've worked in construction. We've got people who've just come out of school and got into safety. We've got such a disparate range of people who work at WorkSafe ACT. It's fantastic. And we're building that safety culture as well within our organisation. So we're not kind of out of the picture.
Yeah, you're thinking about it as well.
I've got to think about it as well.
We're back. The camera overheated, but we're back. All right. How do you measure success or progress at WorkSafe ACT? Is it fewer fines, better relationships, more engagement? What does success look like?
Well, that's kind of there's two ways that I measure success. One's internally and one's kind of externally. Internally, it's about retention of staff. So building a culture internally where people want to stay and work for WorkSafe ACT. So I measure success there around reduced staff turnover within the inspectorate. So that's one part. How would we measure success externally? Really kind of rudimentary. It's around safety outcomes. So reduce injury rates, reduce workers' compensation premium, which lead to reduced workers' compensation premiums, less fines. It's quite a
more understanding, better feedback,
better understanding. More engagement would be great too. So community awareness. There's lots of things that you could measure. We've got our own internal accountability indicators where we monitor our own success around how quickly we respond to notifiable incidents and how quickly we resolve improvement notices and prohibition notices, how many workers' compensation inspections we do every year. So we've got some externally facing metrics that we measure success from. But yeah, internally it's around, which is one of my focuses in my role, is to make sure that I've got an engaged team who
want to be there and want to do a good job.
Coming to work and wants to do a good job. So yeah, two measures there.
It is a bit of a difficult job, as I was saying earlier on. Like, it's so multifaceted, safety in the workplace.
Yeah.
And there's so many things to it.
Yep.
And it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, I've got so much respect for my inspectors and the work they do. Just thinking about when you're going out, you're going into a business to talk to them about potentially something that they've done wrong. And to do it in a professional manner like my team does, such an impressive group of people.
I'm sure there's some really resilient and good communicators in there too.
Yeah, it's part of the job is to be able to communicate if there is a non-compliance within a work site, why they believe that's the case, and being able to work with whoever it is to resolve that non-compliance. So, yeah, a great team.
Well done. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. What's one thing builders constantly misunderstand about WorkSafe ACT and what they're trying to do? Is there a common theme along there?
Not necessarily. I think our role is pretty clear around our role to go out and monitor safety within the ACT. So our role's pretty clear. One thing that comes as a shock to them is that we work on weekends as well. So we also do WorkSafe weekend work. So we'll be out there Saturdays and Sundays. And so potentially a misconception is that we're
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. So we're public servants. We
Safety
just do
never sleeps.
Safety never sleeps. So we just do Monday to Friday. But WorkSafe weekend work, we're out there as well. So construction industry sometimes surprised to see us out there on a Saturday and Sunday.
One thing that just came to mind was, I'm sure the majority of the people that you're dealing with are trying to do the right thing. What happens when there's someone that's blatantly not trying to do the right thing?
Well, if there's blatant disregard to safety, we've got the ultimate mechanism that we've got is prosecution. So we can prosecute those businesses if there's been a significant breach or failure in their safety systems, if they continued non-compliance. So if there's a pattern of behaviour, we can also prosecute in that space. So we have got really broad-ranging powers in that regulatory space, in the compliance and enforcement space. Our compliance and enforcement policy actually steps out exactly what our regulatory posture is, and we do issue notices where there is non-compliance. So that'll be an improvement notice where we think things could be made better. Prohibitions where we see there's an imminent risk to health and safety, or an infringement where there's been a blatant breach of something that the government's put as a priority.
Yeah.
We can't put them out of business. we can't take away their builder's license. Yeah. So there is. We have the ability to infringe and prosecute under work health and safety laws. If they're non-compliant with workers' compensation, we can infringe there too. The step of taking away builders' licenses, I'm not sure what's happening in that space, but it's not something that WorkSafe ACT can do. I can see your mind spinning there going,
good, yeah.
Why can't we? Well, because we can't.
It's just, I don't like everyone's trying to do the right thing, and then there's these guys. We spoke before we started the podcast about the TikTok inspector coming to town, and I just hate that one bad apple can tar a whole industry. It just really frustrates me that.
Yeah, it would be frustrating, but I guess the feedback I could give is that businesses know their own business. So if you're operating safely, take solace in the fact that you're doing the best job you can for your workers to protect their health and safety. The other things that happen in the industry, yes, you could be slighted or offended by the fact that they're happening in the industry that you care about, but all you can do is control your own business and your own workplace. And if you're doing all you can to keep your workers safe, I think that's something really to hang your hat on and something that all businesses should be proud of. So, it's a bit of a kick in the guts when you see others doing something in your industry that you're not proud of. But just become pride in your own action. That's a really good point.
Thank you for
Thank you.
that. Yeah, control what you can control, manage what you can't.
Yeah, every now and then I come out with a good one.
All right, the quick fire round that is never quick fire.
Oh yeah.
One tool, mental or physical, you can't live without.
Golf clubs.
Golf clubs.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I could probably live without them. I just don't want to. It's sort of like.
So yeah, you've got a difficult job, or a very I would say you've got a lot on your shoulders, and you use golf to relax, rewind.
Yeah. So I'm really lucky. My two kids enjoy golf as well. So we're now at a stage where they're dragging me around to play golf. So it's really great to get out there. It's a bit cold at the moment. In Queanbeyan, but
That's fantastic.
I've played golf since I was 12. It's something that I've never been fantastically good at, but I've always loved. So, golf clubs would be my little can't live without.
I love golf. I'm a terrible hacker, but yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Biggest myth about WorkSafe or site safety?
Biggest myth is that it's too expensive. Like that safety is too expensive. It's just not the case. There's safety. There's savings to be made by putting money into safety. And so the biggest myth is that safety costs money. It costs money if you're not safe. That's what I see the biggest myth is.
Yeah, and we're just talking about. There's so much technology out there that can support people, and there's different apps. I mentioned we want to go to Hazard Co. I know you can't specifically talk about where to go, but if you go looking for it, you're going to find it. Safe to Work or Matrix as they were known. They've also been a really good help for us. And you're 100% right. Having guys out of work and paying them on workers' comp, you're not making money out of them while they're doing that. So definitely important. And in the long run, you're right. Definitely right. If you could change one thing in construction safety overnight, what would it be?
Oh, it's full safety. Sorry to those who are getting sick of it, but it's just to ensure safety of people working on site at heights. I'd change that with a click of a finger. If we could prevent those kind of fall risks, fall hazards, I'd do that straight away.
And that would solve majority of injuries, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would solve a lot.
Big percentage?
Yeah, a big percentage. And also the non-compliance in that space. As we see some industry starting to get larger, so solar installation is becoming bigger and bigger. If we could take away those hazards in that full safety as some of those industries start to grow and expand, that would be fantastic. That's what I'd do straight away.
It's a good point. Now, Bill, what's the best advice you've ever received?
So best advice was it's okay not to know. It's not okay to pretend to know.
That's a great one.
Yeah, so I got that when I started at Comcare. Jeff Bassingthwaite was my boss at the time, and it was in a policy space. He said, if I ask you a question, it's okay to say I don't know, but it's not okay to pretend to know, because if you tell your boss something and you tell them straight to their face that that's what happens, that'll perpetuate. So I think as I've moved forward in my career, I'm not sure if it really holds up now. I don't think it's not okay for me not to know sometimes, but I think that's the advice that's resonated me through my whole policy career and also helped me in the operational side of WorkSafe ACT.
I think I'm going to use that one because put your hand up if you don't know what's going on. Let's talk about it.
If you don't know about it, you can take that away and say, well, next time I should. So there's a kind of a teachable moment there for you to go, should have known about that. But it's not okay to pretend to know.
Definitely. Now, how do you personally stay grounded outside of work? Now, you mentioned golf. Is there anything else you do?
Not really. I get in the garden, mow the lawn, like that grounds you. Kids ground you. I've got a new puppy that grounds me who I don't like very much. So relatively grounded. Shout out Wally.
Yeah, nice. What advice would you give to your younger self just starting out?
Like I'm really happy with where I'm at. So I think I'm very lucky in the pathway that I took was the right one. So that you sometimes get told that you need to move into in the public service. You get told that you should move and get experiences in different kind of areas. But I made a commitment very early on that I liked workers' compensation and work health and safety, and I've committed to that, which potentially is to my detriment, but I wouldn't change anything. So if anything, I'd just tell myself, trust your gut in terms of career.
It sounds like you're passionate about it, and I think when you're passionate about it, everything else follows.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
do a good job at it. And, you know, meeting you for the first time and talking with you, I feel like you're very knowledgeable, obviously. And there's a lot of different angles you've come through, which I've been really, really happy to talk to you about.
Yeah, I've pretended to know.
You got me there. All right, who's someone doing good work, safety-wise, who deserves a shout-out? Now, I know you can't specifically target anyone, but you could maybe mention someone at work. At WorkSafe.
Yeah, I'll do a little shout-out. Some great work being done by RMIT Professor Helen Lingard down in the construction space. So doing some really good work in that area. Always colleagues are doing great work. So you look around the jurisdiction, Safe Work Australia is doing great work, especially in promoting psychosocial safety. I think there's a review of the Work Health and Safety Act that'll be coming up shortly. So shout out Safe Work Australia, an old workplace of mine. So yeah, a lot of good things happening in that safety space.
Who else should come on the podcast? You probably can't answer. Yeah.
Who else should come in the podcast? Adam Scott.
Adam Scott, yeah.
The
golfer.
Yeah, the golfer. Yeah. Oh no, the actor's not too bad either. Yeah. So no, I've got no
recommendations.
No recommendations for the next person on the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Where can listeners find out more about WorkSafe ACT and access support or resources?
WorkSafe ACT.gov.au. That's our website. I think Xavier said you put a couple of links in this.
I'll put some links.
A couple of links in there
in the bio. But yeah. You guys are also on Facebook.
Yep.
Jump on there, have a look.
Yep. Facebook, LinkedIn.
Yep. Fantastic. Now, what's a quote you live by that helps guide your work? Is it that one you mentioned before?
Well, it is kind of.
It's okay not to know.
Yeah, it's
not
okay to pretend to know.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. The other one that I like to use, it's not necessarily a quote, but it's if I had a time machine and I could only use it 3 times, would I use that time machine to go and change that? So if you say no, then whatever just happened wasn't important enough for you to go back and change it. So that's kind of how I look at things. Sometimes some things will happen that you're like, I wish I could change that. But if you only had 3 chances to change it, would you use your change on that? So
yeah, that's a really interesting perspective there.
Oh,
love it.
I'm on fire today.
You are on fire, Bill. And look, I've really, really enjoyed this.
# philosophy degree at ANU.
Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation with you, mate.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming in. Keep at it. Keep doing well in there at WorkSafe, and yeah, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Pleasure.
Talk soon, hopefully.
All the best for you and your podcast. Thank you for the invitation. Really enjoyed it.
Easy. Cheers.